The Buffalo Bills are coming off of a disappointing playoff run where it wasn't that much of a run. They barely got past the Dolphins and then got crushed by the Bengals. So where do we go from here? They have a decent amount of free agents. Well, first what we have to do is look at where they were at this season. How close were they this year? Figure out where they're at and then where they move forward and how much cap space they have, all that good stuff. Let's just get into it. So right off the bat, this is where they ranked in terms of PFF grades in specific positional categories. And the first thing that jumps out at you is the passing game, third best in football. And Allen was the best quarterback in football according to PFF this season. If you factor in his running ability, that's why they were number one rushing team. Part of why it was because of Allen as well. So that's very notable. And that's something that you look at and say, listen, regardless of the rest of the situation, regardless of the team around him, all of this stuff, Josh Allen is what keeps us in Super Bowl contention. And as long as you have Josh Allen, if you get that elite quarterback, you're pretty much guaranteed to have a chance at a Super Bowl for 15 years. That's just the way the NFL works, is you can be in contention there. So, again, the reality is, Allen, I think you look at the Allen, Burrow, Mahomes trifecta, I think most people view Allen as number 3 in that bunch. I view him as number 3 in that bunch. I think I put Burrow 2 and Mahomes 1, but that's still not a bad place to be. That still gives you a chance. But what else do you have to do? Well, for one thing, offensive line was not good this year. 20th in pass blocking, 28th in run blocking. So even though they had a good, the running aspect of the running game was good, sometimes they didn't get the yardage totals because they weren't blocking the way you'd want to. So definitely some room for improvement in the offensive line category. The receiving core actually was good this year. Big part of that, though, was Stephon Diggs. I mean, he meant so much to this team. Gabe Davis definitely made some plays. I still think they could use another receiver. I do. I think that could maybe also help this team take the next step, but obviously not as glaring of a hole as the offensive line is. As for the defense, some things are very good. Pass rush was very good. Even when Von Miller went out, it was very good until that, the Bills game where things were a disaster. Run defense wasn't great all year, so the Bengals were able to take advantage of that in the playoff game. Coverage was good for most of the year. It actually, I think, got noticeably worse once Tre'Davious White came back into the lineup. No disrespect to Tre'Davious White, he's obviously an awesome player who's having had an awesome career up until this point, but I just don't think he was 100% yet. He just came back from an injury, and I just don't think he had fully gotten back into football shape. And they kind of threw him out there to be a number one receiver. He was covering Jamar Chase one-on-one in that playoff game a decent amount. It's just like, he's just not that guy just yet. So I think that maybe the personnel is better than what actually happened, which is a good thing for the Bills. That means that next season, hopefully he will be back to elite Tre'Davious White and you're okay there. But still, some areas they can improve upon. So looking over here for their, these are the free agents they have, also how much cap space they have and all that stuff. Currently projected for negative $8 million in cap space this offseason. So again, some ways you can clear it, like restructures and things like that. Teams do typically spend over the salary cap. The average team spends 10 to 20 million over the salary cap. But still, this is the situation where you're up against a salary cap, might not have any money to spend, and they have some free agents. Jordan Poyer and Tremaine Edmonds, defense had a little bit of issues this season. I don't want to let either of those guys walk. I really want to find a way to keep those two players. Although everyone else on this list, I think is you're okay with if you lose. Roger Saffold, Case Keenum's an interesting one where, a high-paid backup. Don't know if you need a high-paid backup in this situation. Allen's been weirdly durable despite his play style. Maybe you assume that won't last and you want to make sure you have a guy who can come in and at least win you a couple games, but could probably do it on a less than a $5 million price tag. Again, Jordan Phillips, Devin Singletary, David, starting with just those guys, those three guys, Saffold, Phillips, and Singletary, all guys who have played their role well, and you don't want to just let them walk, necessarily, but you're okay with it. It's not the end of the world. You're fine. It's not a huge deal. I think Quisenberry, Greg Van Roten, Shaq Lawson, you can let all walk if you want to, but you have to replace, right? That's always the thing. That's why I bring them up on the list, even if it's not a huge deal, because, and worth mentioning, these aren't all the free agents, but the notable ones. If you let these guys walk, you have to find someone who can then come in and be that guy. So either way, you're going to have to spend that money to some degree. However, I have $46 million to spend on this. Maybe you only have to spend $30 million or so, but you still got to find a way to make that money. And maybe you do let Jordan Poyer or Tremaine Edmonds walk. Maybe you can't afford them in this scenario, which would be unfortunate. They went out and they paid Von Miller kind of with the idea of let's go all in. Let's try to maximize this Josh Allen rookie contract window. The issue is that this is the downside is now next year you got to work on stuff. And it's nice to have Von Miller, but he's not getting any younger, and coming off of an injury, there's a little bit of a concern there of how good will he still be. And, maybe at this point, you would rather make sure that you're able to have Tremaine Edmonds and Jordan Poyer than have Von Miller, although prior to the season, you would have rather had Von Miller. Sucks that he got hurt this year. So, it's fascinating with Buffalo. How did they get to the next step? Again, I think they're okay because of the Josh Allen thing, right? At the end of the day, you have the elite quarterback. You're in an okay spot. Like there's never going to be a terrible situation when you have an elite quarterback, just because they do add so much value to a team. But you can't win a Super Bowl with just an elite quarterback alone. I mean, you look at the Packers only won one with Aaron Rodgers, and even the past few years, as they put good teams around, could never quite get it done. And like I said, there's also, you have to find a way to beat the Chiefs and the Bengals, or at least beat one of them for sure. Maybe you get lucky and they play each other before they play you. But either way, you're going to have to find a way to get past them. In the past 3 years, they have not found a way to get past them. Really, when they've been Super Bowl contenders, it's been the loss to the Chiefs twice and now a loss to the Bengals. So they have to find a way to surpass those two teams. To me, it might come with, I think improved offensive line. But again, it's hard because you don't have the cap space to do it really. And there's not a lot of guys you can cut in this spot. It's probably going to have to come down to the draft. And maybe you can, find a good offensive lineman in around, find a tackle. I think they could use a tackle. That could actually make a lot of difference if you can find one of those guys in round 1. And then in round 2, maybe you get a receiver who can help round out that receiving core. That might be the move here because, again, there's ways you can be effective, but how can they totally get that next step? It's very difficult, and it's a very difficult situation. But the nice thing is, again, maybe part of it too is getting healthier, right? Defense should be better with Von Miller back. All that stuff could definitely be a benefit. But where do the Bills go from here? Probably, my guess is they're going to probably be a little bit worse this next year, which is unfortunate, but a little bit worse is still a very good team. They went 13-3 this year, so if we're going to assume they would have lost to Cincinnati when they played them in the regular season, that's 13-4. So even if they're 12-5, like the Rams won a Super Bowl with that record, it's definitely possible, and who knows? I mean, the reality is, if you consistently are the third best team in the AFC, you eventually will get to a Super Bowl that way. Like, even if you stay at the third best team, that's still going to probably, there's going to be a year where one of Burrow or Mahomes gets hurt and you're able to, win against the other one or something like that, or the other one chokes in the playoffs one year and you're able to get into the Super Bowl that way. Being the third best team consistently will eventually win you a Super Bowl, but so maybe that's just a strategy, is to do that right now, which, there's worse strategies, but there's better ones too. We'll see what they can find a way to do. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the Bills and where they go from here. What do you guys think? What should the Bills do from here? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.